and warm welcome to SAP on Azure podcast, episode 259. Holger, we need to celebrate soon. I think maybe around number 200, 300. Today is September 19, and with Holger and Robert, we are here to talk everything, anything related to SAP on Azure. Hello, everybody. Trusted Launch is it's a security feature that protects virtual machine Windows or Linux against advanced and persistent techniques. Security is always beloved topic and super important one. It is also connected to the generation 2 virtual machine, which comes with also goodies itself related to security, but many more. So today we will today talk with Robert about what it is, what is the benefit, is it supported for the SAP and how we can enable it, and basically which would also mean how can we convert from the Gen 1 to the Gen 2 as well. But before we start, Robert, you are old kid on the block, not the new kid on the block. So somebody would not know you. So maybe for those guys who see you first time, maybe just a short introduction, who you are, what do you do, and Microsoft.
Thank you for having me. Yes, hello, everybody. I am Robert Biro. I am with Microsoft, and in my role as engineer/architect within the SAP on Azure engineering group. So our team is responsible for making sure, together with Holger and Holger Goran, what is SAP on Azure and what are the important parts.
Yeah. We talked long about actually Trusted Launch and the Gen 2 context, which are kind of interrelated. So definitely it's a big topic. Customers are asking it, right? So let's start. So basically, what does it actually? Yeah, what does it mean? What is the benefit?
Yes, indeed. On the Trusted Launch side, I have prepared a few slides. Would be a good time to put them on, for us to let me then throw it up. 1 second. Trusted Launch has been around for a lot of years. I don't remember when exactly Azure introduced it. And strictly speaking, there is no change what we do for SAP. It has always been supported, and that will come to the later part as well, what are the important aspects? Because Trusted Launch is becoming a default very soon as the default deployment, security is today more important than ever. So it's a good point to emphasize also with SAP. And also, it enables one scenario which is very interesting for SAP customers or SAP on Azure customers, and that is converting or migrating older VMs, which might still be generation 1, to generation 2, and Trusted Launch at the same time. So I was thinking, let's do a little bit of a recap or kind of an introduction, at least on a high level. What is Trusted Launch? What are the features it brings in? And where does SAP part come into it?
Yeah.
Effectively, or if I can summarize, Trusted Launch is boot protection. It provides a trusted environment, trusted compute, trusted VM that protects against rootkits, against bootkits, any hijack or unsigned executables or kernel drivers. It secures the boot process. It's a good summary as well. It makes sure that whatever the VM that you're running is trusted, hence the name Trusted Launch, and the boot process, again, the launch part. And you can really think of it's a boot protection. What you're starting is the right thing and has not been tampered with anybody else. It is not confidential computing. Confidential computing is a completely separate part, and Trusted Launch, yes, can integrate with that, but it is not confidential computing. It's important to separate those two. It has been around for quite a while, like I mentioned. And now speaking generally on Azure, so nothing SAP specific, has always been SAP supported, but let's speak generally. It requires a generation 2 VM. So some people or some viewers might not still remember. There are two types of generations in Azure VMs. Generation 2 VMs have been launched probably around 2018, something along those lines. Generation 2 VMs enable more features, allow more CPUs, and also have a different type of booting, how the OS is booted. So think of the VM as the construct and the operating system, Windows, Linux, booting within that. As the VM comes up, it is the old style boot or BIOS boot, which is generation 1 from a boot perspective, and a generation 2, which is a UEA5, Universal, I can never remember that acronym. So coming back to Trusted Launch, Trusted Launch is a generation 2 VM with added benefits.
Always would be, right. So if the VM is trusted, launched, enabled, it's by default Gen 2.
Correct. And it's a prerequisite. So it really requires a generation 2. There's two maybe quick points before we get into more details. It's a free feature, so there's no cost factor to Trusted Launch. In itself, it's completely without any extra charge, so there's no cost factor. Secondly, and this is maybe part of the way it's implemented, I have heard quite often the thinking that generation 1, generation 2, and Trusted Launch. It's like yes, it's a continuation, but strictly speaking, and maybe that's the engineer shining through, it is two discrete properties, two different properties. One is the Hyper-V generation, as I put on the screen. Hyper-V generation is 2, whether it is Trusted Launch or it's not. And the second property is the security profile or security profiles, trusted security type, which is either Trusted Launch as a value or standard. Standard being the normal generation 2 without Trusted Launch. So it's you can really think of it like an additional type of generation 2 VMs or a heightened security profile.
But can I ask a stupid question? What does trusted launch then actually mean? So let's say I do, or how does Azure know that this is a trusted kernel? So let's say I install a SUSE kernel patch. For me, this is trusted, but do I need to tell Azure something that this is trusted, or is this already beyond the trust that Azure provides? So what does actually the trusted launch mean?
It's a fantastic question. It's really a fantastic question, and comes really to the core of it. Trusted Launch, and I'm going to very highly simplify here. There's technical details. I really encourage everybody to read up on that. There's a lot of different options and things to consider for an enterprise. Trusted Launch, if I may simplify, is an envelope of further options. So Trusted Launch in itself has further settings which can be toggled on and off. Trusted Launch in itself is maybe we can say a classification of VMs. In itself, it doesn't protect you yet. And that's where the next properties do come into play. And there are effectively 3 of it. One of it is secure boot enabled. I put the technical name on the screen. The default, the default is true, but it can be turned off. Stop the VM, turn off secure boot. And this is deliberately because some things might break, some things were not considered, and then you would have a VM which does not boot anymore because from, I don't know, unsigned driver was, or the keys have expired. You need to kind of have, for troubleshooting purposes, turn off the secure boot. But you want the secure boot because the secure boot brings you the actual feature, the protection that you mentioned, Holger. Secure boot enables that, but it is an additional setting. And maybe a good point to go back to the pyramid. Generation 1, Generation 2, Trusted Launch, not Trusted Launch, and then the third level, the Trusted Launch settings underneath. Is Secure Boot enabled? Yes, no. Similarly, the VTPM, the Virtualized Trusted Platform Module, which can hold keys, security details, and so on. So it's a virtualized TPM module, TPM being very often on the hardware, and this is the cloud version of it that can be used by the operating system. Again, a true false setting. Am I enabled? Am I not enabled? When customers do enable Trusted Launch, our recommendation is Trusted Launch should be used, the Secure Boot should be enabled, and VTPM should be enabled, unless you have reasons not to do so. The third option is the boot in monitoring. And this is effectively the tying into Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Microsoft Defender of Cloud can provide alerting, monitoring, also for running VMs. Is this a securely booted VM, and act on those. And technically speaking, it is a VM extension, which is installed either for Linux or for Windows and provides this monitoring. But again, this is a third toggle. And Portal does it really nicely. Am I Trusted Launch? Yes, I am. I have 1, 2, 3 options to set.
So you can see it actually in the portal as well, right?
Exactly.
I change it, yeah. And actually, not all the VMs are SKUs or OSs are actually supported, right, for the Trusted Launch. We need a bit something, yeah.
That's correct. Strictly speaking, all VMs which are Generation 2 VMs are supporting Trusted Launch, except, and there are a few exceptions, which does bring us to the SAP part. One exception would be VMs with GPUs are not supported, but also M-Series. So every single M-Series VM, the entire M-Series family, does not have Trusted Launch support. So it is Generation 2 VM, but it does not have any Trusted Launch support at this time. Doesn't matter if it's an MV1, MV2, or MV3. At this time, the entire M-Series family is without Trusted Launch support. And similarly, some very old VMs would not be supported.
Right.
This would be really very old VMs like DV2, which never really had an SAP certification, but it is good to keep in mind because the viewers might have infrastructure VMs, some small VMs running non-SAP workload, but used by SAP, where you would want Trusted Launch. Message being, you do have to verify if the VM does support Trusted Launch. Every other VM for SAP, the typical D series, E series, do support Trusted Launch, going all the way back to DSV3, ESV3, and of course the newest ones also do support Trusted Launch. So effectively all, except M series, the entire SAP supported VMs have Trusted Launch support today.
And plus the OS level of support, right? So not just the SKU, but also what kind of operating system version is inside additionally, yeah.
Exactly, and do stop me if we get too technical on this one, but I wanted to highlight this specifically because Trusted Launch is a VM level of property that enables the boot, but we are booting the OS, we have OS dependencies. And if you enable Secure Boot, you have even more OS dependencies. So let's go back a little bit. So the OS support, we have a list of OS versions which have been validated, which have been tested, and that will and is continuing to be updated as well, both for Linux and for Windows. So Oracle Linux, SUSE, Red Hat, all the Windows Server families are in there. Similarly, on the Secure Boot, any images that the partners provide have keys already in the image for Secure Boot to be enabled. But if you have a custom image, if you have a self-built image or a modified image, it's very important to keep that in mind. Both the OS version, because you have two dependency. First of all, am I a generation 2 capable? Can I boot
Yep.
with you if FI? But also if I toggle secure boot. If not, I cannot boot. The boot process gets interrupted because it's not a trusted key, for example, or a kernel driver that something depends on is not signed, things like that. So there is VM level support, or what is supported by VMs. There is the OS dependency, and there specifically for SAP, we have recently created additional SAP node 3655202. And also some other SAP nodes, especially the central 1958533, which lists all the DF and VMs families, is in the process of getting updated to explicitly state and give customers the confirmation Trusted Launch is fine for SAP. We have supported it in the past, but now it's explicit. It's fully supported for SAP workloads, provided the VM supports it and the OS supports it.
Yeah, because that's always, I mean, often was the question, right? They just, customers trust a lot to the SAP nodes as well, primarily, right? So it's very helpful to have it inside. Yeah. So to say no worry there for the SAP itself, or actually it's a recommended, right? So of course.
Absolutely, and this is actually a guidance that we in our team in SAP on Azure Engineering recommend. Trusted Launch should be enabled. Whether you go further and also do secure boot, secure keys, boot integration monitoring, that really depends. But have Trusted Launch enabled. It is a clear Azure-wide and also SAP for Azure recommendation. Yes, but it's. Go ahead.
Yeah, go on.
It has one more benefit, and maybe we can delve a little bit deeper on this one. There's a lot of text on this one. So, like I said before, there is no SAP specific for Trusted Launch. Other than it's supported, there's no action necessary for SAP software. SAP software has no integration in data. SAP software, NetWeaver stack, does not modify the kernel in any way that would interfere with Trusted Launch. It has been supported. Now it's very explicitly supported. Just follow the normal Azure documentation for Trusted Launch. If it is an existing generation 2 VM, and this might be again the confusing generation 2 VM with a security type standard, what we know as generation 2 VM without Trusted Launch, you can enable Trusted Launch easily. It, if I remember correctly, it requires a deallocation, so stopping the VM, and you enable the Trusted Launch. Again, provided VM supports it, provided the OS supports it, you already know it boots with UEFI, so because it's a generation 2 VM, it has been. It's effectively a toggle or a change for the property of the VM. Very straightforward. There is an easy rollback. The rollback is again changing the property to standard, so security type standard instead of security by Trusted Launch. And you have the option on, do I want to enable secure boot? Have I tested it enough? Do I have, is the key update for the secure boot tested and verified and looked into? Do I want to enable VTPM as for Trusted Launch? Entirely up to you. First step is Trusted Launch, then go the next level, and ideally secure boot is also enabled. So changing the fleet or changing whatever all existing VMs, absolutely very easy. For generation 2 VMs,
but
requires a downtime.
We have a customer using Gen 1, right? As well.
Yeah. Exactly. Gen 1, until now, or let me put it this way, there is no way that Azure provides an upgrade path from generation 1 VM to generation 2 VM without recreating it. Goran, you have done excellent work on this with both on PowerShell side and customer work. It is done as easy as possible. but it is a VM recreation with some dependencies. There's no change on this. Upgrade from generation 1 VM to generation 2 VMs without Trusted Launch is not supported. However, there is an upgrade path and a means for customers to take existing generation 2 VMs and convert, migrate, change them into Trusted Launch VMs, and thus becoming a generation 2 VM. Like we said, Trusted Launch is Gen 2. This has a few more dependencies, and maybe let's dwell a little bit on it, even though I don't have any details here. Here I recommend the Azure documentation. It's very detailed. Hopefully you find it very detailed and you can apply it to your own, especially if you have custom OS images. There is OS work. I call it OS readiness. So you need to verify two things. You have a generation 2 VM, you need to verify, can it boot as UEFI? For Linux, this is, in our experience, very straightforward. Even Linux images from our partners as back as 5 years ago, even if they were generation 1, the OS supported booting as generation 2. So there is no, you verified, but in our experience, there should be very little steps necessary, assuming the OS is up to date. For Windows, Windows has been done differently in the sense that a generation 1 Windows image has always had NBR boot, or the classic BIOS boot. So there is some action necessary, regardless if it's a latest or not, to do what is called MBR2 GPT, changing the master boot record to a generally partitioned table, enabling the UEFI, I probably by the end of the video, I'll be able to pronounce it.
You will break your language.
Boot process has nothing to do with Trusted Launch in its own. It is a generation 2 readiness. We have documented the checks necessary both for Linux and the actions necessary for Windows. There is also scripts available in the documentations. Both, this is the very, very important. Ensure the OS is ready, because we, Microsoft, Azure, we don't know what's inside the VM, right? We don't know what the customer is running. We can't touch that. We don't see it. It is entirely on the customer to perform all the OS checks. The rest of the story for generation 1 VMs is very similar. VM family readiness is the same. OS support readiness is the same beyond the checks before performed earlier. See if you want to enable secure boot later on or immediately. There are two special caveats. So you have checked the OS readiness. OS is ready. Maybe you have had to make some changes. Maybe you, as a Windows VM, you had to run the MBR to GPT conversion. Maybe there were some things that you need to check with your OS team or an OS vendor if there is something specific to change. But let's assume OS is ready. The VM is ready and is capable of Trusted Launch. You'd trigger the Trusted Launch conversion, which is again a change of the property. Generation 1 to generation 2, security type, nothing to security type, Trusted Launch. There are two things for SAP customers to think of. First of all, the rollback. We don't give away, if you choose to, on the earlier generation 2, you can go back from Trusted Launch to standard. So classic or generation 2 without Trusted Launch. You cannot go back for generation 1. So it's a one-way upgrade or one-way migration. If you need to roll back for some reason, maybe the OS checks were wrong, something was missed, you have to recreate a VM from a backup, effectively. Restore and the VM is recreated as generation 1. So there's no rollback available for this upgrade path. Secondly,
this is also, the future is Gen 2, right? So it's hard to think about going back to the old technology, what would be the reason, but generally the future is generation 2. So shouldn't be spelled too much tears.
Absolutely.
Not being able to go back.
There should be no need for rollback, yes. But it really emphasizes the point that any OS readiness is on the customer to do, and it has to be really bulletproof. It has to be solid, because you don't want to run an upgrade on hundreds of SAP VMs only to find out on Sunday 3 a.m. that something was forgotten and missed.
Yeah.
We have been there, all of us in the SAP space. The second aspect, again, is the SAP license. And this is not for HANA, doesn't matter much because anyway, M series are not supported, but it is for anything running the message server. Goran, you are an expert on this topic, I remember. The way the SAP license is calculated, there are some wonderful blogs that you have written over the past years. The hardware key does change in this specific case. So the sub-license program that gets the hardware key does see a change. Even though the VM effective is the same, it comes back to some how the encoding of the virtual machine ID and a few things under the hood. So effectively, if you do change a generation 1 VM to generation 2, new hardware key, you need a new sub-license.
And this is only on a Linux.
Correct. Thank you. Yes, this is a Linux-specific thing. On Windows, this does not apply. So Windows is unaffected.
Right.
And my personal opinion, yes, on the SAP Java stack, it is quite important because I believe it's 30 minutes grace period.
Yes. Yeah.
On ABAP, it's usually 30 days unless things change.
Right.
Yeah. So otherwise, then it will shut down the J2E.
So in Java, you have to be fast. Yes.
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 But it's also just in the case when the VM with the message server, also essential services, is converted, that would kind of have not the app server, not the database, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
If you are, for example, using E-Series for HANA, for a smaller system, test systems, or productively, then HANA is unaffected by this. There is no dependency here. It is only anything that uses the sub-license program which reads the hardware key. So HANA hardware key is unchanged.
Great.
And that brings us one more actually point. If the customers are thinking of using this change from generation 1 to Trusted Launch, it has been now generally available. So it's fully supported and has been flagged as GA, generally available in all Azure regions. I believe it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it will be in the Azure updates if you go ahead and have a look at that. No more preview feature. This is fully GA.
And actually, the recommendation would be definitely to go for it as long as there is a transition path, right? Because just the goodies there, just enhance security. Is there anything about potential performance? Something here? I guess not.
No, effectively it is a boot protection. So
Correct.
There is no ongoing encryption or a drawback on this one. No.
Yeah.
And the same on the cost factor. Trusted Launch is for free.
For free, yeah. So just
basically, but you said this can be only installed with a DO location. So basically, if the next time I have a downtime scheduled for my SAP system, anyways, then this would be a great time to do this change, basically. Especially if maybe if I'm already on Gen 2 and I just need to enable it, then it is probably even easier, but potentially then also for existing Gen 1 service.
Absolutely. Really, the nice benefit is it gives the upgrade path from any old generation 1 VM to generation 2, which has been blocked until now or unavailable. And like you said, it requires a downtime, but if it does not take, it's just from a customer perspective, a property change. There is no long-running conversion, even on the Windows side of things. The MBR to GPT should complete rather quickly and can be done as a preparation before as well in your OS readiness.
Great. No, this is, I think, this is a very important topic for SAP customers. I mean, for everybody, including the SAP customers. Simply, you get really many benefits from Trusted Launch and generally from Gen 2 as well, right? So customers are highly advised and encouraged to convert it and use it, right? You just get more security by default. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which is always super great, Robert. Really, thank you for coming. We were missing you, in the past, so we need to continue as well with the other topics, definitely. Maybe also small teaser. We will have also kind of a customer project example. How did they did it? It's some big example as well with some other guys, but as a kind of follow up here. But thanks a lot, Robert, and definitely hope to see you again. I know you have a lot of in your engineering kitchen for the SAP version, right?
Thank you. Thanks again for having me. My pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, guys. See you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.